Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. We've got so much to get to this morning. Yes, I watched some of the 27-minute interview between Brett Baier and Kamala Harris. Brett Baier says Kamala Harris's staff was urgently requesting the interview to end. So it wasn't a very long interview. And if Kamala Harris's staff and if her team had it their way, it would have ended much more quickly. It wouldn't have been 27 minutes. So we're going to get to all of that. I mean, at one point in the interview, Kamala Harris literally starts shaking and screaming. And when she's asked the most basic interview question, so it is over for Kamala Harris. But I've got to get to a couple of things. One local story: say no to getting rid of the McLean County Auditor. I didn't think that needed to be said, but I guess I've got to bring this up because you've got rhino Republicans out there, and I won't name names right now, but I plan on naming names. There's rhino Republicans. One, they're telling people to get rid of the McLean County Auditor. They're also telling candidates who are voting for Donald Trump or have been seen wearing Trump Guard or have some sort of affiliation with Donald Trump. They're telling candidates, these are Republicans in the community. They have no standing, right? They're not elected officials. They're just people who are rhinos, and they claim to be Republicans. They're really not. They're telling these candidates not to put their signs next to their preferred candidate because they don't want any kind of affiliation with Donald Trump. You know how silly that is? That is so stupid. Donald Trump is the only Republican candidate on the ballot in November, and people are going to be showing up. What you're going to have a problem in these local elections is Donald Trump is going to get people out to the ballot box. Okay, people are going to go vote for Donald Trump. Your problem as a local candidate is getting people to vote down ballot. A lot of times people just go in and vote top of the ticket, okay, the low information voter. You have to educate the voters to vote down ballot. And the easiest way to do that is by affiliating yourself with the Republican presidential nominee, okay, with the Republican presidential candidate. That is the easiest way to win your local race. I don't know what's so hard to understand. Why do people not get that? So you've got Republicans out there, and I call them Republicans. They're not. They're rhinos. They're the Adam Kinzinger types. They still exist in Bloomington Normal, folks, these rhino types. And they're out there telling candidates that they can't put their sign, their yard sign. This is how stupid and petty local politics is. And it gets even worse because now you've got people saying, oh, we need to eliminate the McLean County Auditor position because we need to cut costs. That's what they're saying. We need to cut costs. This is going to be a great way to cut costs. You got to be kidding me. So I did some homework, and I'm going to get to this story here in just a second. Also, this hour, I do want to talk about Kamala Harris. She throws herself under the bus again. She announces that this swing state senator wasn't going to be seen with her. Okay, now there's two of them. So at the rallies, a lot of times when they're visiting these swing states, I think she was in Pennsylvania, and the senator, Bob Casey, said, I'm not going to be there to introduce Kamala Harris. See, it's a losing strategy to tie yourself with Kamala Harris because she's just so awful. It's a winning strategy as a local candidate to tie yourself with Donald Trump because he's going to win. That's how you know Kamala Harris is losing. You've got these senators now who say, I don't really want to be seen with Kamala Harris because I want to get reelected in my race. So you've got a couple of senators who won't be seen with Kamala Harris at these rallies, at these swing state rallies. So I'm going to be chatting about that. Plus, Kamala Harris plagiarized like 12 sections of her book. JD Vance blasts her for plagiarizing. She didn't even plagiarize like in an intellectual way. She plagiarized from Wikipedia. You've got to be really dumb to plagiarize from Wikipedia. Okay, so we're going to get to all of it here on Conservative Cat. You can text me at 309-451-9299, the auditor position. I want to get to this because this is so crucial. Turn up your radio and listen. The auditor makes sure, the whole purpose of an auditor, okay, is to conduct audits, regular audits on the government, right? And to make sure that they're spending money on things that they've said that they're going to spend money on things, okay? Taxpayer money. It's your money, by the way. They take it from you and they spend it on things that are supposed to be good for you, like infrastructure, public safety, things like that. Now, the auditor makes sure that the government isn't spending your money on things like lavish trips, luxurious trips, and, you know, there is an argument that people are making right now that the McLean County auditor position should be eliminated because it's going to cut costs. It's going to cut internal costs. You have got to be kidding me with that, because I did some digging, and guess what I found? 2 county employees in McLean County who have the same exact job title don't cut the auditor. The auditor is there to protect the taxpayer, to make sure that your government isn't spending money going to Las Vegas trips and paying money for, you know, strippers, which actually happened in Dalton, by the way, the village of Dalton in Illinois. Tiffany Henyard, right? We remember this. She's under investigation by the FBI. She was stealing taxpayer money to go on luxurious trips. And that's what the auditor is supposed to do. The auditor is to make sure they look over, they comb over the finances of the government to make sure your taxpayer money is going where they say they're going to put it, okay? They want to get rid of the auditor position. Why? Because they're corrupt, okay? Anybody in their right mind knows that the auditor position is probably the most important position in government. So I want to share these clips with you. Well, on the stream, you guys can see it live. I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. I want to share these screenshots just so that way you know I'm not lying. And for the radio listener, I'll describe what I'm showing the folks in the stream. You've got Michelle Anderson, who's been the auditor for a long time. They ran primary against her a couple of years ago. Trisha Malott, I was there at her announcement, actually. And you had a bunch of powerful rhino type Republicans backing her. Okay. There's a lot of speculation in the Republican community in McLean County that they were trying to oust Michelle Anderson with Trisha Malott. Okay. This was a couple of years ago. And guess what? Michelle Anderson, she's not a very vocal person. I've never met her. I've never even spoken to her like on the phone. Okay, so I've emailed with her back and forth a couple of times back when I was in college doing some work for the election and journalism. But she's a very quiet person. She doesn't really put out yard signs. She doesn't run any kind of campaign or anything like that. I think people just trust her at this point because she's been the auditor for quite some time. Okay, so she didn't put up a yard sign against Trisha Malott, and she still won that race. Not even one. I mean, maybe she did. I just didn't see a huge campaign, and Michelle Anderson still won. So the rhinos, they were like, oh man, our candidate didn't work. So now what do we do? Let's oust the position. Okay, let's get rid of the position entirely. So I'm what you're looking at here. You've got Michelle Anderson. She's the 73rd lowest paid employee. There's about 100 employees. This is 2023's numbers, but I couldn't find the 2024's numbers. They might not be like published. I don't know. But this is 2023. Michelle Anderson. She makes $85,000 a year. Okay, just north of $85,000 a year. Well, $86,000 a year. Let's round up. $86,000 a year. Okay, Michelle Anderson. Now, I found, this is incredible. You've got in government 2 people paid the $91,000. His name is John Hendershot. Nothing against John Hendershot. Okay, I'm not trying to blast him. I'm just trying to tell you there are places to cut outside of the auditor where the auditor is an important position. The auditor makes sure that your government isn't spending money going to Las Vegas and paying strippers. Tiffany Henyard. So John Hendershot, Tiffany Henyard's accused, by the way, that's under investigation, but there are plenty of receipts that suggest that she did, in fact, take taxpayer money and spend it on strippers on Las Vegas. Okay. So John Hendershot, he makes $92,000 a year, rounding up. His job title is Environmental Health Program Supervisor. Okay. I don't know what that does or what that is. It doesn't sound as important as the auditor. I'm sorry. Environmental health program. I think that making sure your taxpayer money is going to where the government says it's going is more important than, like, I don't know, silly environmental things. You can't really change the direction of the wind, no matter how much we paid John Hendershot. Sorry. Sorry. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to having an environmental health program supervisor if there weren't two of them. There's two. There's two of them. So Linda Fouch, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Linda, I'm sorry. She is also the environmental health program supervisor, and she's paid $88,000 a year. I don't know about you, but I think that there's other places we could cut other than the auditor position. Okay. And people will be upset with me at this segment. It always happens when I do local news because local news is so tough for me because it's so petty and it's so stupid. So is federal, so is state. Everything is really, these people, I say it all the time, people in government, these elected officials, a lot of them want to be there. They're not there to serve the public. They want to be there. They want to get a nice, comfy position where they only work like part-time and they still get like thousands of dollars, every year. That's what your elected officials, most of them in Illinois want. They want a nice, comfy position where they only work like maybe 6 months out of the year. Okay. And then they get all kinds of, perks with the job as well. They get clout, they get fame, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of your elected officials are in it for the wrong reason. That's why I hate doing local politics. And these are your neighbors. John Hendershot, Linda Fouch. I don't know who you are. I don't even really know who Michelle Anderson is, but I can tell you this: removing more representation out of government, which this is an elected position we're talking about. Removing representation out of government, that's always bad news. Removing positions like the auditor and crucial positions like an auditor position. And, I got to take a quick break. But on the other side, I'll get to the accusations. They're saying that she, doesn't pay the bills on time and that she's come under criticism regarding making payments on time, and there's just general dissatisfaction with her job performance. Here's the thing: it's an elected office. Okay, why would you get rid of the entire office if you don't like her? Just run somebody. Okay, run somebody and try. Okay, and I don't know what kind of truth is out there about these payments, not making payments on time, but I highly doubt any of her mistakes warranted the entire elimination of the auditor position. Okay, even if she made mistakes, I don't know the extent of which she made these mistakes. Even if she made the craziest mistake, she forgot a zero or something, I highly doubt that warrants the entire elimination of the auditor position. That doesn't really make sense. Maybe we should just elect somebody new into that position, right? I think, and this is completely speculation on my part, and I don't do that often, but here's what I think. I think they ran somebody against her. They lost there. And then they said, you know what? Let's eliminate the position entirely. Because I don't know if she's found something interesting as far as spending habits go, and that she called attention to it, or they might not just even like the presence of an auditor. They want to be spending your money in the dark, and they don't want any kind of transparency about that. And they're ousting her because that auditor position itself makes them uncomfortable. They're eliminating this position itself because that transparency makes them uncomfortable, and those checks and balances makes them uncomfortable, and I brought up Dalton we found out that Tiffany Henyard, she was accused of weaponizing police and what critics say is retaliatory business raids, okay? Because guess what? The taxpayers found out that their money was being spent on luxurious trips. She's facing investigations by the Dalton trustees, as well as the FBI now. Now, without the auditor positions, we won't be able to see if they're doing that, okay? And we wouldn't be able to launch an investigation. Without the auditor position, there are no checks and balances on your local government. And we have to ensure that they're not doing what Tiffany Henyard did in Dalton, which is take your money and spend it on a bunch of nonsense. Okay, according to NPR WGLT, County Administrator Cassie Taylor said if the resolution is approved, the county will explore how best to continue internal audits. Okay. Well, they're going to try to pitch it to you like, oh, we can do this internally, and there's no need to have an elected representative do it, somebody that is voted by and of the people, right? I mean, that's great. You find, and originally I thought that this referendum didn't eliminate the office entirely. I thought that it was, let's not make it an elected position. Okay, let's make it an appointed position, and let's appoint somebody to do that job. They say that they're going to do, and it's all promises that, oh, we'll do this internally. There's no need to have any kind of elected official in that position. You got to be kidding me with this. So vote no. I can't believe that these people are that stupid where they're like, oh, it's wasteful spending, the auditor position. You literally got two guys with the same exact job title, and they're paid more. They're paid more than Michelle Anderson, the current county auditor who's elected. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be back talking about Kamala Harris and how she is throwing herself under the bus. Out loud with her mouth, she actually admits that this U.S. senator did not want to be seen with her. I'll be right back. All right, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Sorry, I get a little heated about these local things. I mean, I showed you the receipts. We've got two positions that seemingly they do the same job. They have the same job title. I feel like we only need one environmental health program supervisor. If you want to cut wasteful spending, let's just cut one of them. Linda Fauci, I'm sorry, I hate to do this to you. I don't want to make you the fall guy, but I mean, come on. You've got the same job title as John Hendershot and you're making $88,000. He's making $92,000. Michelle Anderson, the auditor, is making $85,900. Okay. So or $85,973 to be exact. So, this is just, it's not about cutting wasteful spending. It's about operating in the dark. Okay. And the Democrats do this. And I want to point this out. Lizzie Johnson is behind, campaigning for this clearly. So she says eliminating the elected auditor position is a potential cost-cutting measure. That's what she said on the local NPR station. A referendum is on the ballot this November. Obviously, her opponent, Chad Burke, opposes removing the elected county auditor, saying that the appointed auditor could breed, corruption. Okay, so they say that, oh, we're going to do our own internal audits. Okay, that's like kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll do our own internal audits. Are we sure about that? They might appoint somebody to that position, but I think that they're calling for the complete elimination of it because they're running on, hey, let's cut this elected auditor position because it's a cost-cutting measure. We're going to cut this. Now, if they wind up filling that position with somebody appointed, they're probably going to pay him, if not the same, but more, because that's typically how appointing people goes. If you're appointed to a position, a lot of the time you make way more money. She is the 73rd lowest paid individual out of 100. Okay. She's one of the lowest paid individuals in county government right now. So making that argument that we need to cut wasteful spending, I mean, come on. Now, if you want to argue dissatisfaction with their job performance, which is the only logical explanation of why you would want to get rid of the auditor, outside if you want to operate in the dark. That doesn't even have any like girth to it, or that doesn't even like make any sense. Okay, it doesn't even have any validity to it, because it's an elected position right now. If you're dissatisfied with the auditor, or if the people are dissatisfied with the auditor, what they can do is elect a new one. Okay, it doesn't matter really if you're dissatisfied with the auditor. Of course, you're going to be dissatisfied with the auditor. The auditor is there to make sure you're not spending money. And we all know what government loves to do is spend money. Okay, so yeah, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be back talking a little bit more about Kamala Harris. There was a Brett Baier interview. I want to get to that because Harris, she has this meltdown when she's confronted with her complicity in covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. So it was really good. The Brett Baier interview, I think he could have been tougher. I really do. But I mean, he was as tough as I think he could be without completely losing credibility. Me, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, so Kamala, did you sleep with Willie Brown, the mayor, and he give you political favors? That's the question I really wanted to hear asked. I wanted to ask Kamala Harris. So did you sleep your way up the political ladder? And did you know that Willie Brown was buried when you slept with him? And what did he give you in exchange for sleeping with him? That's what I would have asked. I mean, it's a legitimate question and it's totally fair game to call out Kamala Harris for that instance and for that behavior, because she continues to move up the ladder without any kind of merit or experience or resume. She continues to get to places without working for it. So she got this presidential nomination, no votes. Okay, presidential nominee, the Democratic presidential nominee. She had no votes in the primary. She did not work for that position, for that candidacy. I mean, she didn't go out. She didn't knock on doors during the primary. She didn't hand out door hangers, nothing. She didn't even have a staff that did it for her because she didn't run in the primary. She was installed as the Democratic nominee. So it's totally justified bringing up her past, her sexual past with Willie Brown, because we're starting to see a pattern here where she doesn't work for what she's got and she takes shortcuts, whether that be sleeping with a married man or not running in the primary, okay, because it's hard. So I would have loved to seen that question asked, but of course Brett Baier didn't answer or ask that question. He asked a good question though about being complicit in Joe Biden's mental decline, covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. I will be right back. Oh, I think we're coming back for the radio, friends. So we're going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris and the Brett Baier interview. Smash that like button and share this out with your friends. We've got so much planned today. I want to talk about Kamala Harris's plagiarizing because JD Vance blasted her. I also want to talk a bit about George Floyd. And the CNN panel, they completely lose it when a guest brings up Ferguson and George Floyd. And he quotes CNN here. Okay, he quotes CNN and they lose it because it goes against the narrative. So I want to play clips from that panel because it's kind of important when it comes to violent crime and where we're at as a United States. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, she has a complete meltdown when she is confronted with her complicity in covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. I didn't watch the entire 27 minutes of the Brett Baier interview. I went to bed early. I'm kind of like sore, like my throat is sore. It's from the cold and it's just freezing outside, and the harvest season is been kicking dust up. So I went to bed, tried to rest my voice a little bit. But Kamala Harris, she melted down during this interview when she was confronted with covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. Let's take a listen to what that sounded like. Here we go.
You called Donald Trump He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's...
All right, I got to jump in. I hate when I have to jump in. Okay, he's not well. He's unstable. All of her accusations of Donald Trump being not well or unstable, all of those accusations are completely destroyed when people are shown the photo of him pumping his fist in the air, blood dripping down his face, screaming the words, "Fight, fight, fight," after being shot. Okay, you cannot tell me this guy has mental instability or he is not fit for office. The guy got shot and went golfing the next day. I don't know too many people who can do that. I don't even think I could do that mentally, physically. He was thrown to the ground, or he threw himself to the ground. The Secret Service obviously grabbed him. I mean, it was a physical, event that day. He got shot and he got up the next day and went golfing. So I had to put that to bed. I mean, the accusations, I mean, that's just silly. Anybody who sees the photo of him almost being shot in the face, that puts all of that to bed, all of those accusations to bed.
Mentally not stable?
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden.
I like the little pause she's got going on there. She pauses and it's cannot compute, don't know. She's got those earrings on too, by the way, the pearl earrings, where I'm pretty sure they're feeding her information. But take a look.
I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done.
Was that a Freudian slip there? Okay, I'm going to back it up really quick. Here we go.
To do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump is.
I think I didn't back it up enough, but I think it was a Freudian slip. She goes, Joe Biden has the experiment. It's an experiment, okay? This is what the deep state did. It's an experiment. Joe Biden is an experiment. They wanted to throw somebody up there who couldn't string two sentences together, and they wanted to see if the American people would be fooled or would continue to allow somebody like that to be in the presidency so they could operate things and the presidency could just be a face. Okay, it was an experiment, and the American people are not fooled by it.
Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken.
Okay, so I want to back that up really quick, and I promise I'm going to let it go.
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people.
Okay, she says, I think that the American people have a concern about Donald Trump's mental decline or mental instability. Okay, but then she says this.
Who know him best, including leaders of our national security.
Including leaders of our national security. Newsflash, Kamala Harris. Leaders of our national security are not the majority of the American people, okay? You're always out there on the campaign trail saying, I'm just like you, I'm middle class, okay? The average American is not national security leaders. Of course, these national security leaders are going to say that Donald Trump is has some sort of mental instability or physically unable to run for president. Of course, they're going to say that. Why? Because they hate him. They hate him because he's going to cut all of their jobs. He's going to get rid of the government bloat. And these people who shouldn't be in their position, they're going after Americans. These national security leaders, they're going after Americans. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the fake kidnapping. They targeted men and said that they kidnapped her. It was faked. It was all faked. Okay, so by leaders of the national security, you're saying that's the American, including national security leaders. Well, that's not the American people, and that's who she's talking about. People who have concerns with Trump's mental health. It's not the American people. The American people saw on live television him get up, pump his fist in the air, and scream, "Fight, fight, fight," after getting shot. He's physically fit and he's mentally fit, okay?
Community have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office.
Yeah, people who worked for him, and then he fired him, and then they got all butthurt, and now they're like retaliating against Donald Trump. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to be right back. I want to get to Kamala Harris. There are U.S. senators who do not want to be seen with her at rallies. Why? Because she's the losing candidate. I'll be right back. Yes, those earrings. Yeah, she's got them on again. Look, she's got those on again. For those of you who are unsure what the earrings mean, so the earrings, it's said that that type of earring that she's wearing is a communication device where she can hear people talking in her ear, like quite literally. It's like a Bluetooth earpiece. So I don't know, but she's wearing them again, and I think it's kind of funny. During the debate with her and Donald Trump, she wore them, and then she's also wearing them here. And if you've looked at other photos, she doesn't wear them all the time. Okay, so it's not like she wears them regularly. It seems that she only wears them when she's in live setting, or when she's about ready to have some unfriendly fire from the Fox News reporter Brett Baer. So when we come back, I do want to continue talking a little bit about Kamala Harris and Bob Casey. Bob Casey is a U.S. senator who would not be seen with her. Also, Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin knew that this was too risky to be seen with Kamala Harris because she's the losing candidate. She's acting like the losing candidate in a way that she's going on all these different. She went on a media tour. Okay, she's going on media tours now. Donald Trump, he's been doing the media tour for quite some time. Okay, he's been on podcasts. He's been getting himself out there. But something that you can tell where Donald Trump has kind of shifted and he's acting like the winner, he's going to blue strongholds. So he's no longer just like campaigning in swing states. He's going to blue strongholds because he thinks that he can take away some of those votes in the blue strongholds. Chicago, California, New York, right? New York City. I think he's going to be in New York on the 27th. Okay, so he's behaving like a winner. He's like, all right, I've kind of moved on from these swing states. I'm going to try to go for the blue strongholds, and he's behaving like a winner. Kamala Harris is not behaving like a winner. Okay, she's going on every single podcast, every single mainstream media interview now. Now she's really like trying to get herself out there just less than 20 days before the election. But also a tell that she's losing is that you have candidates who are not willing to be seen with her. Okay, so you've got Senator Tammy Baldwin, you've got Senator Bob Casey, crucial state of Pennsylvania. She throws herself under the bus. Okay, she throws herself under the bus, and she says that Bob Casey couldn't be here today, at this rally, and that's throwing herself under the bus. Okay, you've called attention to the fact that Bob Casey wasn't there. If he's out there doing what he's got to do to win his race, okay, so and that's not being there with you. If he was wanting to get reelected, you would think that he'd show up with you and have this large platform, this rally, and get in front of all of your voters and tell voters to Bob Casey's the Democrat, right? And he wants to get reelected to this office. And he's out there doing what he needs to do to get reelected. Right, like not being seen with you in public. He knows he won't get elected if he's seen with you in public. Earlier in the show, I brought up how there's rhino Republicans out there advising certain candidates to not put their yard signs up next to other candidates' yard signs because they say, oh, don't put your yard sign up to that candidate's yard sign because they don't want any affiliation with Donald Trump. They want to win. Okay, they don't want any affiliation with Donald Trump, so they want to win. See, you've got Dave McCormick, which is the GOP opponent of Bob Casey. Okay, he's out there doing what he needs to do to get elected, and that's going to a Donald Trump rally and appearing on stage with his party's presidential candidate. Okay, he's not backing away. Now, I could see if Donald Trump was losing. He's not. He's up in the polls. He's acting like a winning candidate. Okay, and he's been appearing with, of course, Dave McCormick has been appearing with his party's presidential candidate. Unfortunately, at a local level, you've got people who will say that's a losing strategy in McLean County, and that's just not true. That's not true. You are going to lose, and we are going to lose this split on the county board, which is really, really crucial. You guys think your taxes are high now? Just wait until there is a Democrat majority McLean County board, and there is no auditor to make sure they're not spending money. Okay, spending money on crap. Okay, just wait. You think your taxes are high now? Buckle up, bucko, because it is going to get so much worse if there is a Democrat majority on that board and there is no auditor to check them when they're spending money, okay, to ensure they're not spending money on things like Las Vegas strips. Get ready, because it's going to get so much worse. There will be no McLean County left. It will be, it'll be like Cook County. It'll be just like Cook County, where violent crime is rampant, and you've got taxes out the wazoo, and yeah, it'll be a blue county. Get ready for that. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday. Subscribe to the YouTube channel today. We were chatting a little bit about Kamala Harris throwing herself under the bus here. Now, she's had quite a few surrogates of hers throw her under the bus, including Tim Walz himself, where Tim Walz gets out there and he says, we can't afford 4 more years of this. And then I love Donald Trump's social media team, where they like cut that with, I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message. They're making ads out of all of this stuff. And they've got Bill Clinton out there. Bill Clinton is out there saying, Lake and Riley would be alive today had we properly vetted these illegal aliens. And then, Donald Trump comes in with his social media team and he goes, I approve this message. And then you've got Barack Obama out there berating black men, saying, hey, the only reason why you're not voting for Kamala Harris is because she's a woman. She's a woman and you won't vote for her, black men. They're already not enthusiastic about Kamala Harris being the Democrat candidate. Okay, I saw crazy numbers. 81%. I think. Favorability amongst black men for Barack Obama, and then it just progressively gets so much worse. With Hillary Clinton, it was like 63% favorability, and then with Joe Biden, I think it was like 53%. And then with Kamala Harris, it's 41% favorability. So, it just gets worse for the Democrat Party. I think there's a few reasons for that. Clearly, you've weaponized the Justice Department against Donald Trump. And I feel like a lot of black men might relate to that. Okay. And, you got this. It's a bad arse mugshot out there, and he's he's got that mugshot. That in and of itself is going to be very popular amongst the black men community who feel like the justice system has been weaponized against them or is unfair to them. Okay, there is a community out there, black men, who feel that way, and guess who's being unjustly prosecuted? Donald Trump. Okay, so there's plenty of other reasons as well. The Democrats' promises to the black community, specifically black men, keep falling flat. I think at this point, Black men and all men, really just men, women, we just want the opportunity to be prosperous. Okay, we just want opportunity, and the Democrat Party is against providing you that opportunity because they want you to look to the government for all of your needs. Okay, they want to remove your opportunity. They want to remove the ability, your ability to make something of yourself, because they want to make you into something. And what they want to make you into is not prosperous. They want you to be eating bugs and owning nothing and living in a small apartment in a blue city. Okay, that's what they want for your life. And if you don't want that life, you know who to vote for. All right, I want to get to this. Bob Casey, he wasn't with her at this latest rally. Okay, so she calls attention to that. Less than 3 weeks ago, we're at a point where the presidential race, you can tell more about the campaigns and how they're doing by the behavior of the candidates more than the poll numbers. Okay, the behavior of the candidates is what matters at this point. With less than 3 weeks to go, I mean, we've got 3 weeks to go, maybe like less than 20 days, something like that. We can start to see the behavior of the candidates really, and it tells you more about who's going to win than the poll numbers. Okay. Donald Trump is up in the poll numbers, but really just look at the behavior of the candidates. Okay. So it's really telling when you have a campaign, a presidential campaign, when the elected officials don't want to be seen with you. Okay, it happened for the second time with Kamala. First, it was the Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin. And then it happened with Bob Casey in the crucial state of Pennsylvania. And the funny thing is here is we've got Kamala Harris calling attention to that. Okay, it's one thing for him not to show up. It's a whole nother thing to call attention to that. So here's Kamala Harris at a rally calling attention to that. And then I want to get to the opposite, where you've got Dave McCormick, the GOP opponent of Bob Casey, out there, and he's being seen with his party's presidential pick. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
Bob Casey, who could not be here tonight because he's out doing what he needs to do to get reelected to the United States Senate.
Yeah, not being seen with you. That's how he's going to get reelected to the United States Senate. Contrast that with Dave McCormick, okay? And this is why I get so upset when you've got local candidates who say, oh, you have to distance yourself from Donald Trump. And you've got people who have no skin in the game at all. They're just rhino Republicans. They're out there telling candidates, hey, don't put your sign next to Donald Trump signs, or don't put your sign next to that candidate's sign because he's a Trumpy. He's going to vote for Donald Trump, and he's aligned himself with Donald Trump. So don't put your sign next to his, right? So petty, so silly. You've got Dave McCormick here, and I want to share this here with you. He's at the rally with his party's presidential pick. Here we go.
And if we win this election, we are going to have the America we love for every single American. Mm-hmm. We are going to have the America we love for our children. We will have the America we love for future generations. But my friends, this is the most important election of our lifetimes, and every one of us and our children need to act like our life depends on it, because it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, so he was at the rally delivering remarks right next to his candidate, the presidential candidate. So I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to wrap this story up on the other side. Plus, I want to get to a few other things. I'm going to get to some of the Brett Baier interview. I also want to get to Kamala Harris plagiarizing. She took things from Wikipedia and put it in her book. I'll be right back. Yeah, Brian. Great comment. Yes. So, I mean, I forget who, I think it was honestly NPR who printed this headline where, in an effort to outreach to the Black community, Kamala Harris vows to legalize recreational weed and what was the other thing? Regulation. Oh, crypto. It was crypto. Something with crypto. So how stereotypical, right? I mean, it really is. It's so racist. Like, I would imagine that, like, I didn't know that Robert Byrd was still alive, but if he was, he'd probably write for NPR or one of these mainstream outlets. They're so incredibly racist. To suggest that black men like smoking dope, and that's what's going to get them out to the ballot or go and cast their ballot for you, Kamala. Like, that's insane. Okay, and give them $20,000. Like, okay, at that rate, you're like just trying to buy their vote at that point. And at this point, I don't think that black men, want the money. I don't think that they want the handouts, the free handouts. I think that they truly just want the opportunity to create a prosperous life for themselves at this point. They're sick and tired of the Democrat promises. And I don't think legalizing recreational weed is that big of a like that's pretty stereotypical, right? I mean, she's out there saying, "Oh, I'm going to legalize weed to," and the NPR, they printed it. They said something in outrage to black men. She legalizes weed. So, are you saying that black men smoke weed all the time? It's a little racist, right? I mean, that's stereotypical. It's a trope, but I don't know. I don't know too many actually. I've got not a ton because I grew up in an area outside of Chicago. It wasn't the burbs per se. It was a little farming community. I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't grow up with a ton of black peers, right? But of the friends that I do have who are black, I can tell you right now, they don't smoke weed. Okay, they're just like normal people, and they don't smoke weed all the time. And this whole legalizing recreational weed, it's a little racist. It feels a little racist to me, and it's it's weird. Like I said, I think Robert Byrd writes the ghost of Robert Byrd right? Is in these places, these mainstream places. I mean, that I saw that headline and I was like, that's kind of a weird move. You're gonna legalize weed and say, oh, it's because black men want it. And legalizing weed, you guys know my position on this. It's not that I'm totally against it, but at the same time, I think that there's more pressing issues that she should be campaigning on. She should be out there. She was not. She was afforded the opportunity by Bloomberg to go and sit down for an interview to talk about her economic policy and the intricacies of her economic policy. She declined that interview. Donald Trump went out there and he talked about his economic policy. I think that more people are concerned with that than legalizing recreational marijuana. Honestly, that sounds like something that should be up to the states on a state by state basis, because some states, some places you go down south specifically, a lot of those places, the people don't want it legalized. I think we were sold a bill of goods that this had no negative effects on communities and that this would have no negative effects and that we'd make a ton of money off the taxes. And here we are few years later, and we're not seeing this total influx of cash coming in and relieving the taxpayer or relieving the taxpayers, and where we could cut taxes elsewhere. It's not bringing in as much revenue as they said it would. It's also there are negative effects, right? You've got people driving under the influence. You've got high anxiety, people saying that they're depressed. The numbers are out there. Don't take my word for it. The numbers are out there. There are negative effects to smoking weed, and they tried to sell you as if there wasn't going to be consequences to legalizing it in the state of Illinois, right? So I'll be right back. Smash that like button. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk. Bloomington Normal. Kamala Harris reportedly plagiarized 12 sections of her book, Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. That's the title of her book. No one should be surprised. Come on, she's so inauthentic. And I mean, Vance called out her academic dishonesty in front of Minneapolis 3rd Precinct. And if you guys don't know anything about that, that's like George Floyd, okay, area there where he was there calling her out for her inauthentic for her fake behavior, inauthenticity, in thought, yeah. But you've got JD Vance blasting her. You've got people not wanting to be seen with her. And here's one thing that I wanted to wrap up that last segment with. I would imagine this is how it kind of played out. Team Kamala was like, hey, messaging Casey's team, Bob Casey's team, the U.S. Senator, hey, can we have Bob introduce Madam Vice President Kamala Harris? And then Team Casey was like, ew, gross. No, the senator is going to be out doing what he needs to do to get reelected. He can't be seen with Kamala because she will ruin his chances of getting reelected. And then Team Kamala was like, how could you pronounce my name wrong? And you're racist. You're sexist. You don't want Bob to be seen with a black woman. Now that's all speculation on my part, but I'd imagine that's kind of how the conversation went between Team Bob Casey and Team Kamala Harris when she was trying to get Bob Casey to introduce her at one of these rallies. So like I said, there's nothing authentic or joyful about Kamala Harris. She's not a very joyful person, as seen when she was shaking and screaming in the Brett Baier interview, which we will get to. But she's handed a lot of things she doesn't deserve and she doesn't work for. Okay, and I've been talking about that this morning, where she was handed the nomination. She didn't run in a primary. She was handed a job after sleeping with a married man. And I think that she has no original ideas in her head. Okay, that's why she has to do this, where she has to do things that's not actually working for what she's got. She's got to Willie Brown. She's got to be with Willie Brown in order to climb that political ladder. She's got to not run in a primary in order to climb the political ladder, and she's got to be installed because she has no original ideas and she can't do anything for herself. So we're going to come back. We're going to talk about her plagiarizing parts of her book. I also want to talk more about the Brett Baier interview. You're listening Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. You know, in the 6 o'clock hour, and I do want to bring this up one more time, the position of the auditor. Okay, and I know this is kind of controversial because you've got Republicans out there feeding you, so-called Republicans, I'm going to call them rhinos. You've got so-called Republicans out there feeding you nonsense. And I just want to kind of provide you more information about what an auditor does. The auditor is supposed to ensure that government is not spending taxpayer money willy-nilly, or government officials are spending taxpayer money on luxurious trips. In the case of Dalton, the village of Dalton, you had Tiffany Henyard, where she was allegedly, because she's being investigated by the FBI and the Dalton trustees, she was spending money on Las Vegas trips and strippers, allegedly. There's a pending investigation, but there's finances. You can see through the finances where they're spending this money, and they comb through the government's finances. Okay, there is this sentiment out there, and they're saying that, hey, we should cut the auditor position because it's wasteful spending. Let me provide you more information. She's the 73rd lowest paid government employee out of like 100 or so. Okay, so she is one of the lowest paid employees in government. The role of the auditor is to protect the taxpayer. I did a little bit of digging, and I actually found where we could cut some wasteful spending. There is not one but two people with the job title, quote, and I'm quoting here, Environmental Health Program Supervisor. Okay, John Hendershot, he makes over $91,000 a year. Linda Fouch, she makes $88,000 a year. Michelle Anderson, the current county auditor, she makes $85,000 a year. Okay, now somebody commented, they said, no, both sides can't stand her, meaning Michelle Anderson, the current auditor of McLean County. There are only 4 or 5 counties in the state that have an auditor. I don't think I need to tell you that the state of Illinois is extremely corrupt. And of course, that doesn't surprise me that there's only a few counties in the state that have somebody who provides checks on county government, where they can't spend money on luxurious trips or spend money on nonsense. Okay. Now, this is interesting. I don't know the whole story here because back then I was in college. I wasn't tuned in so much to this local story where she didn't pay a bill for a 911 service to whomever. I'm sure it's a third-party contract, right? And she didn't pay the bill. And McLean County lost its 911 service temporarily until the bill got paid. Now, Tricia Mallant, she ran a couple of years ago. This was the, Republicans' pick. And she was endorsed by Sheriff John Sandage. Love John Sandage. I don't know if Tricia Mallant was the best pick. I don't know a whole lot about her. I remember when I was there when she was announcing her candidacy. And, whether or not Michelle Anderson is a good auditor, I'm not arguing that. Okay, maybe she's not a good auditor, but it's an elected position and we have a chance to put somebody else in. Okay, just because you failed at your attempt to put somebody else in back in the primary a couple of years ago, she didn't put out one yard sign. Okay, I mean, this woman has got to be, either the best auditor ever, where she never has to campaign, or people just aren't educated about her flubs. Okay, so we need to start educating people about her flubs or mistakes if she is making them. And then we need to run somebody against her. The people need to run somebody against her. This woman, she didn't run a campaign against Tricia Mallant. I never saw one yard sign. I didn't see one interview. This woman barely goes out and does interviews. I've tried to interview her. She never contacts me back. Michelle Anderson. Now, I don't think that mistake, it's a bad mistake. Don't get me wrong. And it totally warrants us running somebody against her. However, I don't think that mistake warrants the entire elimination of the auditor position. I don't know if she found I don't know. It seems odd that Michelle Anderson is being picked on, I guess, or this auditor position is being picked on. Maybe she found some interesting spending habits, and people don't like her presence there because it makes them uncomfortable, because her entire job is dedicated to the transparency of government. Now, they're talking about possibly appointing some people to this position, like doing internal audits. Well, that kind of, it's like, oh yeah, we'll do our own internal audits. Come on. We need somebody in that position that's elected for and by the people. So the position is incredibly important. Okay. And despite, all the mistakes of Michelle Anderson, if she's got them, despite all those mistakes, it does not take away from the fact that we need somebody in that position to conduct audits and be working on behalf of the people and make sure that our government is being transparent. Okay, so yeah, a very important position. This whole concept of, we're going to cut costs, or we're going to cut wasteful spending, and the position is a way to do that. That's silly. Like I've proven to you that there are two positions currently, one making $91,000 a year, one making $88,000 a year. There's two people who have the same exact job title in county government. Okay, so maybe we should talk about cutting that. Cutting one of their positions, because they're making they're making way more than Michelle Anderson. Okay, like I said, she's one of the lowest paid employees. And, maybe there should be a conversation of how much we pay the auditor. Maybe it should be one of the highest paid positions in government. Maybe you would yield better results from your elected auditor if there was more pay. Okay, maybe you'd yield better results. I think $85,000 is plenty. But if she's making mistakes, let's just run somebody against her. Why eliminate the position? All right, I do want to play this clip. This is Kamala Harris. She's having a complete meltdown when she was confronted with her complicity, of course, of covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. But here she is screaming and shaking when she was asked the most basic interview question. This is a disaster for Kamala. She did not appear cool, calm, collected, presidential in any way. She was screaming and shaking. Here we go.
It talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And
locking up people because you disagree with them, that kind of sounds like you. It kind of sounds like what you did to the J6ers. It kind of sounds like what you're trying to do with Donald Trump. The only person who is weaponizing the government against anybody, it's the Democrats. You've got the DOJ out there, and they're trying to force illegal immigrants back onto the voter rolls, non-citizens back onto the voter rolls, when Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, he signed an executive order saying, hey, let's pull those people off. These are self-identified non-citizens. They checked a box and they said, I'm a non-citizen, and then somehow they made it onto the voter rolls, and he's saying, hey, we got to clean that up. The DOJ has been weaponized against democracy. Okay, it's illegal for non-citizens to vote in this country. They are weaponized, and they are suppressing evidence by trying to say, let's put the murder weapon back. Okay, let's put the non-citizens back onto the voter rolls. Okay, it's similar to that of saying, okay, this guy died. We're at the crime scene. I'm not going to take the murder weapon in. We're not going to check for prints. We're not going to do anything like that. We're not going to look for fibers or anything to try to catch the criminal. Let's just put the murder weapon back, pretend we didn't see it. Okay, that's what the DOJ is doing. They are weaponized against you, the American, because they hate America. Because she's a comrade.
Democracy. The president of the United States in the United States of America should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. Talked about
for handle criticism. Look, somebody attempted the guy's life. Okay. And Donald Trump is also not saying that he's going to lock up these people. Somebody obviously attempted to murder Donald Trump, assassinate Donald Trump. He should get to the bottom of who tried to do that. These people are freaking out. They're freaking out. They're becoming unhinged because they are going to be faced with accountability. Yeah, you should be held accountable if you were censoring Americans on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. You should be held accountable, Kamala Harris, if you contributed to the assassination attempt with your violent rhetoric, calling Donald Trump Hitler and a dictator. Yes, you should be held accountable. I think that all of these people should be locked up. The people in the DOJ who are putting back non-citizens on the voter rolls, they're not even taking that into evidence that there are non-citizens who have made it onto the voter rolls. They're saying, no, keep them on. Okay, people who are willing to do that and subvert democracy and make a joke of our elections by having non-citizens vote in them or register for them. I mean, this is silly. This is silly. I do want to play this. This is Brett Baer talking about what it was like, what the Kamala Harris team was like while he was interviewing Kamala Harris. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And, you know, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. So, Martha, final. Yeah, I had to dismount there at the end. There's so many things, and she maybe should do more of these. Dana.
She should do more of these. I'm kind of shocked that Kamala Harris did this. She had her earrings in, of course, the little pearl earrings. I don't know if they were talking at her ear during the interview, but Brett Baer says that Kamala Harris's staff was urgently requesting to end the interview. They were waving their hands around saying, this has got to stop. It's got to stop. Of course, because this was a complete disaster for Kamala Harris. I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I do want to talk about plagiarizing Kamala. She plagiarized 12 sections of her book. Her academic dishonesty was called out by JD Vance. I'll be back with that clip next on Conservative Cat. Good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. I do monitor the chat. I do appreciate you being here. I hope that the audio is on. Can you hear? Can you hear me? All right. Let me know in the comment section. Reparations, paying money to people who are not slaves by people who never owned slaves. Yes. So, you know, the way I describe reparations is, you know, you pay money to people who vaguely look like people who were enslaved, and then you pay money to people who, or the people paying the money vaguely look like the people who enslaved those people. And like I said, the Black community, they're sick and tired of the Democrats because they've been promising things like reparations for years. And now Black men are saying, okay, well, you're not giving us reparations. She was asked about this, Kamala Harris, actually, and she gave a complete non-answer, and she danced around the question, you know, and even for a liberal, she sucks, right? Because she won't even come out and like answer whether or not she's pro reparations. She says, well, we've got to study it. We have to study reparations. Okay, to the Black community, that means you're not serious about paying out reparations. And people who are pro reparations can't even stand her because she's not willing to stand by them and say, yes, we're pro, or yes, I'm pro reparations, and I'll be working on that as your next president, right? She's not even willing to do that. So the liberals hate her because she's dancing around questions like reparations and whether we should have them. And the conservatives can't stand her because we don't like reparations at all. And she's come out and said that she's willing to implement something like a reparations program. And reparations is just silly. But even if you were arguing in defense of reparations, the Democrat Party is not going to be the ones who provide you those reparations or get it done. Okay, because they've been saying that they're going to do it and they've never done it. And the Black community is just kind of sick and tired of it. 20,000. See, they can't do that. 20,000 forgivable business loan. We know that the president can't do this. Joe Biden, the student loan forgiveness, they didn't follow through on that. Why? Because it's unconstitutional. A lot of this is unconstitutional, even like legalizing recreational marijuana, the $20,000 forgivable business loan for Black men. You can't really do that as the president. And that's what really bothers me about everything Kamala Harris. Put aside the fact that she's a complete dingbat and can't string together a couple of sentences, has no original ideas in her head. Put aside all of that, right? And put aside her plagiarizing her book and lying outright about the story, which I'm going to get to. It's kind of funny. It's that Freedom story where she was 2 years old and she looked up during the, civil rights era, and she said, freedom, I want freedom. So we're going to get to that. It was a legendary segment by Tucker Carlson. I'm going to throw back to that because she stole Martin Luther King's famous freedom story. So we'll play that clip, but put aside all the inauthenticity. She constantly campaigns on being a legislator. The president is the executive branch. Okay, we know that they can't do things like forgive student loans or give out $20,000 or legalize marijuana. All of that should be going through our legislature, which should be going through Congress, the Senate. They should be battling out those things, not the president. The president's sole job is to ensure that we remain sovereign as a country, which means borders, right? And we are our own country. So border security and national security, where we are working with our foreign adversary or working with our foreign allies and trying to defend ourselves from our enemies abroad. Okay, that is the role of the president. And that's how Donald Trump talks about his role as president, setting tariffs on things and things like that. That's all the role of the president. She has no idea what the job even entails. She's talking about it as if it's another legislating gig, and it's not. It's the executive branch. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk. Bloomington Normal. Yes, we do want to get to Kamala Harris here. Her inauthentic, she's not very joyful. She's not joyful like the media portrays, okay? She screams. You heard it there. She goes, he says that he's going to lock up his opponents, which is just not true. Who has been prosecuted by their political opposition? It's been Donald Trump. Okay, he's been investigated more than Al Capone. Okay, at this point, they're treating him like some sort of mobster, gangster type. He's got the support of at least 50% of the country. Okay, so she's got no original ideas. She is the puppet. She doesn't go out in front of the press. She is nervous to get in front of the press. I'm shocked that she did this interview with Bret Baier. That's how you know she's really grasping at straws, because she's losing. That's how you know she's losing. She decided to do this interview. It was like and they kept trying to cut the interview. The team Kamala, they were like, cut the interview. And they were like waving their hands, Bret Baier said. So, because she was doing so terribly. So she's too pathetic to come up with her own platform, which is why she is trying to take credit for Donald Trump's platform. She even stole JD Vance's child tax credit. JD Vance brought up the child tax credit, and I was telling the listeners on the stream about this. She stole JD Vance tax credit. The reason why JD Vance brought up the tax credit is because he actually is could be the deciding vote in the Senate there as vice president. If it's split, he is the deciding vote. We know this. Kamala Harris was the deciding vote with the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan Act, which caused inflation to skyrocket. So JD Vance brings up legislation a lot of the time. You won't hear Donald Trump talk so much about legislation like no tax on tips or things like that, because really that's not the role of the president. The role of the president is to make sure we're sovereign as a nation and to make sure all of our foreign allies and adversaries are in line. And she thinks that the role of the president is to give out $20,000 checks to black men for business loans. She thinks that she can legalize at a federal level marijuana. I mean, she's treating the presidency as if it's just another legislative role. And we've seen how that's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court with Joe Biden, the student loan forgiveness, he can't do that using his executive authority, because at that point, you've made the legislature, Congress, pointless, ineffective, if you're just going to start legislating from the presidency. So she's too pathetic to come up with her own platform. So she steals things and tries to take credit, like the child tax credit, which is different because she would just give out $6,000 checks to people who don't actually work or make an income. Whereas JD Vance's tax credit plan, child tax credit plan, you have to put in something to get out. So baby mamas, that's an actual term. It happened where you started giving checks to people who had children. And then they just started having the babies in order to get the checks, the income. Okay, that's what happens when you don't say, hey, you have to do something. You have to actually work and have income in order to get this tax credit. That's what happens. You wind up with baby mamas, people who have babies just to get the check, just to get the income. And that's what Kamala Harris's plan is. So she steals platforms, she changes them into commie platforms, but she's too privileged to share childhood memories where she allegedly fought off oppression in Canada. So she stole Martin Luther King Jr.'s freedom story. You guys remember this? She's so privileged. She can't even come up with childhood memories where she fought off oppression, because newsflash, she didn't fight off oppression in Canada. She lived in one of the wealthiest suburbs. Her parents both graduated from Ivy League schools. They both made incredible money. They had a divorce, the two parents, but the mother who raised the girls, Kamala and her sister, the mother had a divorce settlement. And if you were to adjust it for inflation today, it was like $100,000 before she moved to Canada. Okay. I don't know too many middle-class people who start out with a check of $100,000 or whatever. Not to mention parents who graduated from Ivy League schools. But throwback to Tucker Carlson, I want to play this clip where he talks about how she stole, really, Martin Luther King Jr.'s freedom story. This is legendary. Take a listen.
Kamala Harris, who, by the way, is the ex-girlfriend of Montel Williams and will be described that way forever after on this show, wants you to know that she's totally authentic. She's just real. She's not some typical out-of-touch politician. She's so real. She listened to Snoop Dogg and Tupac back in the early 80s before either one of them even made music. That's how real she is. She listened to tunes that didn't even exist. But recently, one of Kamala Harris's realest moments has been getting unwanted attention. According to Kamala Harris, when she was a young child, she attended a civil rights march. Of course she did, in Oakland, needless to say. And during that march, she was so focused on the liberation then in progress, she somehow became separated from her parents. She was in a stroller. Here's what Kamala Harris says happened next.
When were you out there protesting?
Well, I was in a stroller. And so I was out there. And in fact, my mother used to have a very funny story about I was fussing and she said, Kamala, what do you want? And I said, and this is how she would say it. And she said, Kamala, what do you want? And I said, freedom.
No.
She just wanted freedom, or she said, freedom. Which is funny because both of Kamala Harris's parents were immigrants from other countries who came here because when they arrived in the 60s, it was a totally free country. There was no Jim Crow, actually. Kamala Harris didn't grow up under anything like that. She grew up in a country that's freer and more equal than the one we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. Kamala Harris made the same claim to Elle magazine in October. And a similar story appeared in the books that Kamala Harris claims to have written, both in 2010 and 2019. Did you know she was an author, in addition to the former girlfriend of Montel Williams? Oh, yeah. But here's the amazing thing. In 1965, which was 56 years ago, Martin Luther King himself told Playboy magazine an almost identical story. King said that he saw police, quote, accosting a young girl in Birmingham, Alabama, and we're quoting, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. According to the Reverend Martin Luther King, the police officer asked, what do you want? And just like Kamala Harris, that girl responded, freedom. Is this nauseating? Yes, it's nauseating. But the plagiarism isn't even the worst part. Again, to restate, Kamala Harris is the daughter of immigrants who came to the United States because we had freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And freedom was what allowed her to become a United States senator despite having no personal accomplishments. But instead of celebrating the United States for the amazing place it is or was, Kamala Harris has decided to tell us once again, like they all do, this is a terrible country. It's a racist country. And that's why we need more identity politics, which not incidentally will make me more powerful.
Yep. All right. Well, that was a throwback to the legendary segment where he calls out Kamala Harris for stealing Martin Luther King Jr.'s freedom story, right? She didn't come over to this country, or parents immigrated over to this country because it was free. She didn't immigrate at a time where there was civil unrest or where there was racial tensions. She's just straight up lying. And then how do you remember that you were in a stroller and that your mom tells you, your mom tells you that you had this like freedom, what do you want? I want freedom. Like that was obviously Martin Luther King's story and you stole it and you repeatedly stole it. So once a thief, always a thief. She stole that Martin Luther King Jr. story. She's also, being called out now by JD Vance for her academic dishonesty. It's been found out that she plagiarized 12 sections of her book. Her book is called Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. No one should be surprised because, like I said, she's a thief. Once a thief, always a thief. Kamala Harris wants the masses to believe that she's a progressive prosecutor, but she also wants you to believe that she's tough on crime. Sorry, you can't be both. Okay, you can't be a progressive prosecutor and then also be tough on crime. They're opposites of each other. So when I come back, I'm going to be playing JD Vance's comments. He actually made them outside of a building, in front of a building in the Minneapolis precinct, 3rd precinct, which is George Floyd territory. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about that next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. So do appreciate you watching and subscribing. Kamala, Kamala. Yes, she is just, she's trying to, it is the biggest scam. Okay, and people will realize that she didn't even run in a primary and somehow she became the presidential nominee. And, my fun fact, my brother, we're twins. So he's the same age as me, and it's been very interesting to watch his political and ideology transform over the last couple of years, because he used to be, kind of anti-Trump. He even considered voting for RFK Jr., not anti-Trump, but he's a Christian conservative, and he really doesn't like how crass, Donald Trump is at times, thinks that he can kind of be rude, and he voted for Donald Trump, obviously, in 2020, and he's a conservative through and through. But the crassness gets to him because if anybody knows my brother, he's just a very gentle giant. He's like 6'2" or something like that, and he's just a very gentle human. And it rubs him the wrong way, his crass behavior and his boldness a lot of the time with he would like somebody more presidential, and he thought RFK Jr. would have been a great pick. he wasn't going to vote for him because of the abortion thing. I had to tell him, hey, this is where RFK stands on abortion. And he was like, oh, I don't like that. He's pro-life. But it's been really interesting to see how my brother cannot stand Kamala Harris, being that he's a blue collar guy, worked for everything that he's got, works like a dog, right? Works hard. He really can't stand that she didn't run in the primary. He is really peeved off about that she got no votes. And then she has somehow made it to this position. He's peeved off about that. And a lot of Americans see this and they're like, how the smartest of the smartest should be up there. And Donald Trump is very smart. I know it doesn't appear that way when he's talking to the masses at his rally, but when you listen to that interview, it was like 2016 Trump all over again, where you're listening to the interview with him and the Bloomberg host, and he just, he just completely destroys this hostile host, this Bloomberg host, with facts, fact after fact after fact, talking about the tariffs, talking about how high tariffs are going to bring American companies back, Illinois companies back, John Deere and Stellantis, I told you, they're investing $6 billion into Brazil, their facility in Brazil between 2025 to 2030. And they're not opening up this Belvedere plant. Then you've got Bernie Sanders out there, wagging the finger at Stellantis, saying, you better fill your promise to these Stellantis auto workers. Democrats don't do crap. They wave their finger and they're like, you better listen, Stellantis. And they're like, you evil corporation. But who actually holds these corporations' feet to the fire and says, no, you're going to do business in America. We're going to make sure that the products are safe, not cheap, and that they're not poisoning the Americans. Because when you make things like over in other countries, like, for example, China, the Nike shoes, right? You can't ensure that they're not making it with child labor, or you can't ensure that the food that they're sending over is not poisoned. Okay, there can be regulatory measures here in the United States with American companies. You've got the FDA, the NIH, you've got the OSHA to ensure all of that is running smoothly here in America. But when we get these products from other countries outside into America, we can't ensure those protections for Americans. And Donald Trump said that's a big problem. We are America first. We want our companies here in America, and the tariffs are going to help with that when we do high tariffs. And a lot of these liberal economists hate that, and they point to Herbert Hoover in the Great Depression time because he used high tariffs. When you look at decade by decade and you break it down, Herbert Hoover probably had some of the highest tariffs. There was an economic downfall, and then he tried to do the tariffs to offset that. To get more revenue in. And Donald Trump explained it this way, there's two tools, or there's two ways you can use a tariff. You can use it to make money, revenue, or you could use it as like a billy club where you're like, you better make your products here in America. And that's the way he used it. But if you go decade by decade, we have completely just stopped taxing and tariffing a lot of these foreign countries, and we've been providing them military aid for nothing, and really we should require them to pay. I think that yes, the America, yeah, there are benefits to being the world police. There are benefits to that. We are a world superpower in that sense, where we provide defense for a lot of other countries. However, it's unfair for the United States to pay for all of that, i.e. the United States, i.e. the taxpayer. You and I, we pay so much money into this military industrial complex, and we're providing defense for all of these countries. They should pay a little something for that, right? It only makes sense. All right, we're going to be back talking about JD Vance and his comments, blasting her for plagiarizing, which is kind of funny. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I want to get to JD Vance's comments here. He calls out Kamala Harris's academic dishonesty. She plagiarized like 12 sections of her book. Her book called Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. He calls her out right in Minneapolis, which is the hub of the George Floyd riots. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
I saw today actually a story that Kamala Harris apparently copied some significant chunks of her book from Wikipedia. So if you want a president with their own ideas, vote for Donald Trump. If you want a president who copies her own ideas from Wikipedia, vote for Kamala Harris.
Do you think you have a shot?
I saw.
Oh, boy. So according to journalist Christopher Rufo, he says Harris plagiarized at least a dozen sections of her criminal justice book. The current vice president even lifted material off of Wikipedia, according to the Post Millennial. In the report, Rufo cites multiple instances of apparent plagiarism from the current vice president in her book, citing famed plagiarism hunter Stephen Weber. So Stefan Weber or something, he's like a plagiarism hunter, and he found all of this, and he cited his work. He's a plagiarism hunter. So Rufo cited these multiple instances of apparent plagiarism that were found by Stephen Weber. Weber has taken down politicians, for plagiarizing. And here's the thing is that she got caught, and now we've got the media running to cover. They're already covering her. From the New York Times, here's the headline. A plagiarism expert says Kamala Harris's lapses, they're calling it lapses, not just straight out plagiarism, okay? They're lapses were not serious, okay? They're not serious. The plagiarism expert said it's not serious, okay? Just imagine for me if Donald Trump or JD Vance did something like this. The press would endlessly report it. But rather than do that, the media has gone into overdrive and activated their PR crisis mode for the Democrats, okay, and for Kamala Harris. And they've resorted to their fake plagiarism experts, their professors that get paid exorbitant amounts of money with tax dollars, they're public professors, and they're gaslighting readers into believing that this isn't serious. No, it is serious. Anybody who's attended college knows how serious plagiarism is. Professors endlessly engrave that into your brain. I remember at ISU, you had to make sure you put everything in quotations. If there was even a little tiny comma outside of the quotations, I would get docked points, okay? So this has been something that has been a part of the American university system for a long time. Plagiarizing is a big no-no. I mean, I know people who've been expelled for plagiarizing. So it's a very serious offense, especially when you're running for president. Everybody thinks that the presidency, you have to have a ton of experience. You have to be a pretty smart cookie to get up there, right? Not in this case, not in Kamala Harris's case. And when it comes to political science, it's just la la land. It's clown world. Okay. It's not actual, life. Okay. And only in political science and only in American politics can you get somebody so unqualified to just be handed the most powerful position in the world. She's just handed this powerful position. So if you want a president who has their ideas, original ideas, you know who to vote for. And if you want a president who copies their ideas from Wikipedia, you know what to do. I do want to take a quick break. Actually, no, I'll get to this. The Ferguson effect. Now, I was watching some of this on the CNN panel. So this was a CNN panel, and this guy, he started talking about this Ferguson effect. So the Ferguson effect is an increase in violent crime and violent crime rates in a community caused by reduced proactive policing due to the community's distrust or hostility towards the police. Okay, so this is an actual thing, the Ferguson effect. This was first proposed this term after the police saw an increase of violence following the 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. We remember this. So this is an actual term, okay? And I am going to cite CNN for you, according to a CNN article from 2015. Quote, Several high-profile police shooting incidents, many caught on camera phones, have given rise to protests over policing tactics that critics call heavy-handed. Okay, so back in this time period, there was a lot of cell phone video. There were police shooting incidents that were criticized. People started criticizing the police, especially after Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Okay, and they said that, oh, the police are heavy-handed. In some cities, this is still the CNN article, police officers privately report holding back on making many stops for fear of ending up on the next YouTube bad cops, and they're going to be the next bad cop sensation. And according to the outlet, this is called the Ferguson effect. According to CNN themselves, they said this, it is the Ferguson effect. Okay, so there was a period of time where police officers, they said, hey, we're kind of like not stopping people, if they're speeding or if we suspect that they're, committing a crime, we won't pull them over because we're kind of afraid we're going to wind up on YouTube as the next bad cop sensation. So the CNN panel, they lost it after this guy, his name is Ryan Gerdutsky. He was a guest in the show. He brought up the term Ferguson effect. And he said that, the rise in violent crime, that the FBI, they lied about the violent crime statistics, in the debate where you had this guy, he was like fact checking Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said, hey, violent crime is up. And then he says, oh, actually, no, the FBI statistics say that it's not up. They lied. Okay, shocking. The FBI, they found that, there were like near 2,000 cases that they lost and that they didn't report. So like the jobs report, right? Turns out that there was way less jobs than they originally reported with this administration. And I think it was 181,000 jobs or something that they bloated the jobs report with, and those were all fake jobs. They weren't even real. So similarly, I can't talk today. They faked, they didn't report the violent crimes accurately, the FBI, right? So let's take a listen to the CNN panel where they start talking about violent crime and it being up. And Ryan Gerdutsky here, the guest, he says that, hey, it could be the Ferguson effect. See, the problem with progressives is that when the facts don't align with the narrative, they get all butthurt and then they start to deny reality and then they blatantly lie. So let's take a listen to the CNN panel. Here we go.
Yesterday, Ryan, about how in the context of riots, he was saying, let's just bring the military into it to deal with American citizens. I mean, that happened yesterday.
Right. But the post-George Floyd riots resulted in an excess of over 15,000 black male deaths in this country. How?
Yeah.
The surge of violent crime, it was like Ferguson, the Ferguson effect and the Floyd effect.
Respectfully, you got to explain to me how George Floyd's death.
Yeah.
Because I need causation here.
Yes,
you really are.
What happens is after the Ferguson riot and after the Floyd riot, policemen, in fear of their jobs many times and political coverage, pull back from their jobs, resulting in an increased level of homicide.
I got to stop you there because hold on.
You can look at the Washington Post.
Ryan, we got to stop you there because you're literally making a connection out of your own conjecture.
No,
you cannot.
It's a real thing. Look up the Ferguson effect. Look up the Floyd effect. It is a real term.
You cannot.
It's a real term. I didn't make this up.
Invent a connection between two things just because you want that connection to be there.
It's a little like a name. It's a real thing. You can look it up.
Right. It could be a right thing, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. Yeah.
All right, I got to take a quick break. We're going to wrap this up on the other side. Oh, man. I mean, these progressives, when it goes against their narrative, they start to melt down. This guy's right. There is something called the Ferguson effect where cops don't want to do their jobs because they fear backlash from the media or becoming the next YouTube bad cop sensation, right? So they fear doing their jobs. They don't want to be seen as heavy-handed, so they stop doing their jobs, and then that rises in violent crime. The number there is staggering. 15,000 Black people died due to the Floyd effect. Okay, 15,000 people died due to the Floyd effect, which the Floyd effect is, of course, cops not wanting to do their jobs, so they don't respond to violence or they don't respond to crime because they're afraid of the backlash. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Woohoo! Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, the whole blame Trump for everything, including the BLM riots, it's only going to hurt the left, okay? Clearly, this was the Floyd effect. The Floyd effect resulted in 15,000 Black Americans dying. The Floyd effect being that, cops fear doing their jobs. They're in fear of doing their jobs because a lot of the times you get all kinds of negative publicity for doing your job, or you get all kinds of backlash. So yeah, I thought that CNN panel losing their minds over what Gurdesky, their guest, said was hilarious. Clearly, that's what happened here in this rise in violent crime. I do want to end the show. I want to talk about the auditor position one more time. This is something that I've been talking about a lot on the program today. And I need to share this with you because you need to say no to getting rid of the auditor position. And a lot of Republicans in the community are going to tell you that this is a good thing, getting rid of the auditor position, because we're cutting wasteful spending and Michelle Anderson is no good and she didn't pay bills on time. And that resulted in a 911 service being temporarily shut down. The McLean County Sheriff's 911 service temporarily being shut down. I get it. She might not be a great auditor. However, removing the position is only going to hurt the taxpayer. Okay. And it's going to breed corruption. Making sure your government is spending money where they're supposed to be spending money and not taking luxurious trips or, taking fancy lunches and buying, their friends' lunches with taxpayer money, right? That's all stuff that the county auditor does. This is an elected position. Okay, so this is removing representation in your county government. We can get rid of Michelle Anderson if we don't like her. Okay, and if we think that she's doing a poor job as auditor, we can try to run people against her and we can remove her. It's not impossible. You just have to inform the public. But cutting this woman, cutting the position is a terrible idea, and it's not getting rid of wasteful spending. I did some digging and I found out that Michelle Anderson is one of the lowest paid elected positions because she's not really an employee of the government in the sense that we can get rid of her. We, the people, we can elect somebody new. She gets paid $85,000. It's one of the lowest paid positions within the McLean County government. I found that there are 2 environmental health program supervisors, same job title. John Hendershot, he makes $91,000 a year, and then you've got Linda Fouch, who makes $88,000 a year. If we want to cut, if this explanation, that's out there that Republicans are barking at you, and they'll say, "Oh, it's bipartisan. It's bipartisan." Okay, there's a lot of things in government that winds up being bipartisan. It doesn't necessarily make it good. More representation, more elected officials, good thing. That's a good thing. That means you have a voice. And that means your voice will be heard. We just need to get good people in those elected positions. Let's not eliminate them. All right, you guys have a blessed day. That's it for me. Bye-bye. I love you. I'll catch you on the stream, YouTube, Rumble. Next time, that's tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. You have a great day. Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.